Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Evan McCauley, president of the club, and we are thrilled to have you joining us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel. Our club meets weekly at Laurel Lake for breakfast on Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. Come out and join us for a meeting. We'd love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact that we are having on the local community and world, please visit rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the meeting today and be the inspiration.
Good morning, Rotarians.
Good morning.
I am Tom Tobin. I am a substitute sergeant-at-arms, filling in for Ron Strobel, who I believe has a sore throat or something like that. Please all give him your thoughts and prayers today. Let's see, this morning, Kelly Brennan is going to lead us in the invocation. Not lead us.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Does this work? I guess it does. It does, because Tom put it all together, so I know that it works.
That Tom.
I got a call a day or so ago from Rich Warfield. Rich, I don't know where you ran off to now all of a sudden. And unfortunately, sadly, that there was a passing for an individual within his firm. And so first I want to offer condolences and certainly our sympathy to the family and to Rich's firm and everyone that has worked with Richard Leach, who passed away just a few days ago. So if you all bow your heads, do not stand at my grave and weep. I'm not there. I'm not asleep. I'm 1,000 winds that blow. I'm the diamond glints in the snow. I'm the sunlight that ripened the grain. I'm the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's rush, I'm that swift uplifting rush of quiet birds and circled light. I'm the soft star that shines at night. Don't stand at my grave and cry. I'm not there. I did not die. Amen.
All right, and we have George Schneider who's going to be leading us in the pledge and the four-way test this morning.
Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First,
Is it the truth?
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
and fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And if I might ask Chris Barker to lead us in a song this morning.
Sure.
What do we have? Oh, this land
is your land.
Okay.
Bill Woolrich, this one's for you. He thought it'd be a good song this morning. So if everyone would please join me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. Thank you, everybody.
And if I can ask Chris to also come up and fulfill her duties.
Sure.
Do we have guests this morning?
Yes, we have guests with us. Thanks for joining us. So we have Mary McCauley, Evan McCauley's mom here she's joining us today, so thank you very much. And then I know the Hudson Service Learning Group will be coming up later, so you'll get to learn more about them, but thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tom. Good morning, fellow Rotarians. How is everyone? Wonderful. So last night I was talking with Michelle, my fiance, and I said, hey, you know, in the mornings I get up and I need to say a few words. What should I say? And she looked at me and she said, well, you know, just don't be too witty, don't be too funny, don't be too intellectual. Just be yourself. Ouch. Ouch. That hurts. So raise your hand this morning if you know which district you're going to be voting for in the race for the Ohio Senate coming up. Do you know which district you're in? Okay. Well, hey, thanks for being, those of you that are honest out there. I think Christina and Adam might give us a little bit of a quick education, but not to throw my mom under the bus, we were talking this weekend. Thought, you know what, where's the map? Where is the district line? Well, we're in the 27th district, and Christina Rogner and Adam Van Ho are with us this morning, and we look forward to their presentation. Before we get started, we're going to finish our guest introductions, and thank you to Jamie and Lonnie for being here this morning, and I'd like to call them forward with their two students from Hudson High School. Let's give them a big Rotary welcome this morning.
Good morning. Morning, everybody. Good morning. So happy to see all of you today. First off, just want to say thank you so much for all of your support with our Camp Ledgewood experience last week. Kayla's going to talk to you a little bit about her experience there, but we were able to use funding for new gravel, for some new trails at Camp Ledgewood, in addition to painting 3 latrines, a fire suppression building, a water treatment plant. We also were able to get a lot of firewood chopped for the girls for the season coming up, taking down tents, and we also put together bags for hospice veterans and for the Rape Crisis Center. So thank you so much for your generosity. We really value all that you do. And our 2 wonderful students today are Kayla and Carson, and they're going to tell you a little bit about either Camp Ledgewood or their site. So thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Move this down a little bit. So I'm here to talk about Camp Ledgewood, and it was amazing. Banner, Bach, Amier, Cosbin put so much effort into making sure that we all were able to mix into groups that we didn't know that we could even belong in, and talk to people that maybe we didn't even talk to. Like my cabin that I stayed with, Banner listed off everyone in your cabin you had to go find. And I mean, I wasn't really friends with anyone in my cabin. I didn't really know anyone, but we stayed up till like maybe 1:30 just talking, not even about anything like super deep, but we were just kind of talking as friends. And it really goes to show how much we look at and judge people so quickly. And then if you just really talk to someone, it really breaks down those barriers and those walls that you kind of put up yourself. So it was really nice to be able to do that. And then on the second day, we were doing service for the Camp Ledgewood and then Rape Crisis and hospice veterans. And the I think his name, was it Dan? Dan was talking to us. He's like the camp maintenance guy. He was saying that it saved him over 4 weeks of work by us just being there for a couple hours doing it. So it was really tremendous that we got to help him. I lucked out. I didn't have to do any manual labor. I got to make cards for the hospice veterans. I was very excited. It's not that I don't like doing manual labor. It's just I like making cards a lot better. I'm a creative person. But writing those cards, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. I don't even know this person that it's going to. What do I say? But I just kind of thought about, I'm like, what would I want to hear if I was in that situation? What kind words would I want to hear? So that's what I went with. And I got to think about the whole time while writing it and making the cards, and we put together gift baskets for them, like how far that's going to go. And like, because of your generous donation, you didn't just impact service learning, but you've impacted people so much further. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Carson, and so over the past few months I've been volunteering at Haven's Home in Stowe, and what that is, it's an assisted living place for elderly people, and a lot of the residents there have pretty severe dementia. So basically what I've been doing is I've been helping around just cleaning and also cooking. And I'm the type of person that can't even microwave popcorn, so this has been a whole new experience for me trying to learn how to cook. But they've been awesome there. Yeah, they've taught me how to cook all this good, cool new food, and excuse me. And also, basically, I've just been a buddy to all the residents there, because a lot of them don't have family that's close by. So basically, I've been there to kind of just be a friend, and even if it's not talking, at least watch some game shows with them throughout the day. And basically, what it's taught me is, being kind to someone and kind of just lending a hand to someone is the most important thing you can do. And laughing with someone is the best remedy for any kind of sadness. I've gone to sites some days and I'm like, man, is this going to be a good day? Is this going to be, am I going to be positive? But once I get there and I start seeing the residents and I laugh with them, and it's one of the best experiences I've ever had. So I'm so grateful for Service Learning, and I'm so grateful for all the residents there and the employees. And yeah, thank you for having me this morning and sharing my experience.
Do each of you have plans after high school?
Yeah, I intend on going to college for music somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where yet, maybe out east somewhere, but that's my plan at the moment.
What's your music specialty?
I play the drums, but I also sing, play piano, ukulele, and guitar and other instruments. Yeah. Thank you.
Kayla, could you tell us a little bit about your plans?
Of course. So I'm planning, I hope to go to OSU. That's my #1 right now, but I want to be a teacher, and I want to be an educator. I want to specifically go into English, but I've got this idea that it doesn't really matter what field you go into and impact a student. Doesn't matter if they like English or not, but it's just what I like, so I'm going to go into my strong suit. But it doesn't really matter, because if you just share that love and that kindness with a child, it may impact them into other future studies and their lives. So that's what I want to do.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to further echo Lonnie's thanks, the gratitude that we have for the money that you donated. What we were able to do with that was incredible. I was part on the labor side of things, and we tried to put the pool, the tarp over the pool, and there had to be 25 of us, and I can't believe nobody fell in. But like, as we were doing it, I'm sitting there thinking, how could only 2 people do this? Because it's like basically an L-shaped pool. They've got the stands up, and you've got to go around it, and it took us like half an hour, and nobody fell in. And to have done it without that many people, I can't even imagine it. So just thank you for allowing us to be able to do all of that.
Great job, Carson. Great job, Kayla. Thanks for being with us, and keep it up. You're really representing our motto of service above self. So great to hear from you. We wish you the best of luck, and keep coming back to Rotary. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. Again, you don't want to hear me talk. You want to hear our wonderful guests speak. And to get us started is Mayor Dave Basil.
Thank you, Evan. And Carson, take heart. My wife had a friend in her dormitory her freshman year of college who could not make Jell-O. It is my honor and privilege to introduce today's speakers. Each speaker will have 6 minutes to address the club, followed by a question and answer period, and they will have 2 minutes to address each question. Chris Barker, sitting right up here, will be the timer, so just to let you know. First, Christina Daly Rogner. Christina, it was first elected to the Ohio House in 2010 and is completing her 4th term as representative for the 37th Ohio House District. She is term limited. Prior to serving in the Ohio House, Christina served as an at-large member of Hudson City Council from 2005 to 2010. Before her time in elected office, Christina worked as an engineer for Westinghouse Power Generation and as a management consultant for McKinsey & Company. She has lived in Hudson for 16 years with her husband Eric and their 3 daughters. We will also hear from Adam Van Ho. Mr. Van Ho is a native of Northeast Ohio. He was previously an assistant prosecutor and worked in the office of the Ohio Attorney General. Adam is the founder of Van Ho Law with its offices in Hudson. He is a graduate of Allegheny College, the Cleveland Marshall School of Law. He and his wife Tina reside in Monroe Falls with their children Mikey and Lizzie and a 14-year-old golden retriever. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to Christina Daly Rogner and Adam Van Ho.
Thank you, David, for that warm welcome, and thank you to the Rotary for having both of us here this morning. So before I dive in and talk about myself, I think it might make sense to put in context who we are and the office we're running for, because you see judges and you see lots of candidates come before you. So basically, very quickly, there are 3 branches of government: executive, judicial, and legislative. You have that at the national level, but you also have that at the state level. And at our state, the head of the executive branch is a governor. Of course, we have our courts and all the judges. That's a judicial branch. But my favorite branch is a legislative branch. That's a branch that is made up of, at the United States level, it's called Congress. But in Ohio, we call that the General Assembly. And it is made up of 2 bodies. It's the House of Representatives and the Senate. Now, Ohio is made up of 11 million people. So there are, in our House of Representatives, we have 99 reps. I currently represent the 37th House District. That's what we're part of. But there's 33 senators, so it's 3-1. And together, the reps and the senators, the General Assembly, we make the laws for the state of Ohio. So that sort of puts it in context. We're running for the 27th Senate District. Now, to be a good legislator, I believe you need to really know your community. And I know Hudson. I love Hudson. My parents moved here over 30 years ago. My husband and I have been here for almost 17 years. We've raised our 3 daughters right here in Hudson. And as David mentioned, some of my involvement in the community, it's not just to me checking the boxes that, yeah, I've done that. To me, it's through those experiences, I have gotten to know this community and learn to love it. And for example, I sit on the board of Hudson Community First. And it's through that experience that I've learned how much Hudson loves our youth and we're willing to invest in our youth. I was part of the Leadership Hudson class that brought you the farmers market. And it was through that experience that I learned not only that Leadership Hudson class, but all the ones prior and the ones that follow, that Hudsonites, when we have a dream, we come together and we turn that dream into reality. And through my experience on city council, I was never, let me put it this way, I was always amazed at how whenever there was an issue or a problem facing our community, there was never a shortage of Hudsonites that would step forward and say, I'm here, I'm ready to serve, I'm ready to give my time, talents, and treasures. And then this Rotary, you guys are awesome. I mean, I look forward to your spring gala every year, and just the money that you guys raise through that has impacted not only our community, but really, frankly, the world. I mean, from buying the medical equipment that you guys have to building wells in Ubumi, for the children of Ubumi in Africa. I mean, you guys have made a difference. So I love Hudson. I've gotten to know it over the years. I started in the legislature in 2010. I was elected, started there in 2011, and at that time we only had 89 cents in the rainy day fund. I mean, jobs were leaving the state, things were grim, but we got to work and we put some of our conservative, just common sense principles to work, and things really turned around with your help. So, for example, in terms of philosophy, I believe that in the economy, it's the private sector that creates the jobs, not the government. The private sector does. But what the government can do is set a stage that's inviting to business, lower taxes, common sense regulatory reform, energy that's cheap and reliable, an educated workforce, do things like that, and then the private sector will create the jobs. And that's been happening since 2011. Over 520,000 jobs have been created in the private sector. Our unemployment's gone from 9.3% down to 4.5%. It's been a great turnaround, and I've been proud to be a part of it, and I thank you for your support that's made that possible. And another passion of mine has been education. So, I believe that we are blessed in Hudson with amazing schools. I mean, I've got 2 daughters in the Hudson school districts. Catherine's a senior, Caitlin's a sophomore, and we love the Hudson schools. But we also have the Western Reserve Academy. We've got Montessori schools. We've got Seton. I mean, we are blessed with some great schools. But it's not the case across the state. And so one thing that I've taken upon myself is to lead on this thing called charter school reform, and I've been doing that over the last couple of years. It's gained bipartisan support, and it's really bringing some accountability to the schools. I led the Common Sense Initiative for regulatory reform. So I've done a lot of work in Columbus, and a lot of great things have been happening. And it's been an honor to serve you guys, to serve you there. So the 37th House District that I am now in as your representative, I'm the Republican candidate. It is a swing district. I took that. There was a Democratic incumbent in there. I won on a platform fiscal responsibility and open and transparent government. I won in 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2016. 2016, I'd like to note, this district did vote for Hillary Clinton. So it was still, but I won those 4 terms because you know that I have worked hard. I love this community, and I've served with integrity. And it would be an honor for me to serve as your next state senator. So I respectfully request your vote on November 6th, and those of you tuning in as well, for Christina Daly Rogner for Senate. If you'd like to learn more, my website is christinarogner.com. Thank you so much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
I'm Ann Van Ho. I'm also running for the Ohio Senate. And first of all, my wife gave me the same advice that Evan's fiance gave him this morning. She gives me that advice anytime I go out of the house. And so because this will be on cable access, I'm going to behave myself. I'm running for the Ohio 27th Senate, which for those of you who don't know, includes the northern part of Summit County, including Hudson, Stowe, Monroe Falls. Goes over to the western portion of Summit County, the western portion of Stark County all the way down to the Tuscarawas line, and all of Wayne County. It is actually a district that is about the size of Delaware, if you want a comparison. It is much bigger than Rhode Island, and it is a district that is very diverse, very challenging. You have very, very wealthy suburbs in Hudson and in Bath, and you also have struggling communities in areas of Stark County and Wayne County. And the reason I'm running is, as I was sitting in my office one day, I had some friends call me and I said, Adam, we need a change in Columbus. We need some different perspectives down there. And when the Democratic friends called me, I said, okay, yeah, you want somebody to run. But it was when my Republican friends were calling and saying, we want someone down there, and my opponent is a proud conservative, and I honor that. I am an unabashed moderate. I believe that when you look historically at Ohio, we have been best governed when we've governed from the center. When we've had people willing to talk and learn and listen across the aisles. The first campaign I worked on when I could barely walk, still can barely walk some days, sports injuries, was George Voinovich when he ran for mayor of Cleveland. My father was one of the guys who helped get him elected. Over time, we came over to the Democratic Party, but we've always been kind of that center. My father's family actually comes from a long line of Northwest Ohio rural Republicans. My mother's side was from Cleveland. They have been Union blue-collar Democrats. But everybody is kind of around the center. And so when I was growing up, we learned Mr. Voinovich was good, but we also learned that Mayor Euclid, who was a friend of ours, Tony Ginta, was a good guy. And the two of them, and back then in the 80s and even the early 90s, you had people who were willing to work together. And so it was with that spirit and seeing some of what's been going on in Columbus for the last decade or so, this is why I wanted to run. I love Ohio. My family has been in Ohio since the 1800s. We still have the same farmland that's been passed down from generation to generation. And so the other reason I'm running is I have 2 children. And I want to see Ohio have the same promise that I think everybody in this room had when you were growing up. the ability to get a good education, the ability to get a good job, the ability to be able to retire with dignity, and the ability to not fear going to a hospital or getting a prescription drug. And so my experience is a little bit different. I come from, I worked 2 and 3 jobs my whole way through law school. And I went to school full time, so you can imagine how much sleep I got. After law school, rather than taking a high-paying job at some firm, I went and worked as a Montgomery County prosecutor down in Dayton. I handled child support cases. I fought deadbeat parents. I worked with juvenile delinquents. I did a ton of grand jury cases. And then I came back to Summit County. At the time, Cuyahoga County was a cesspool of corruption, and I didn't want to even get near it. And so I worked for our county prosecutor. I handled adult felony cases everywhere from low-level drug dealers and low-level drug possession cases up to murders, rapes, things like that. Based on my experience, I was asked to then go work for the Ohio Attorney General's office. I worked for 3 attorney generals, handled organized crime and death penalty cases. Those were my 2 specialties. Needless to say, I was the last person you wanted to see walk into a courtroom against you because you were probably in a lot of trouble. When I got engaged to my wife, I decided I didn't want to go to Coshocton on Monday, Toledo on Tuesday, and places that I can't even remember on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I settled down, went to work for the Ekman law firm of Burden and Merletti, and then eventually opened up my own law office. I literally was burned out of downtown Akron by a fire on December 12, 2016, and moved my office to downtown Hudson. I represent small businesses. I represent families in various forms of crisis. And I represent people that are fighting everything from opiate addictions on up. I've dealt with the mentally ill, and I've dealt with multimillionaires. And so why am I running? And I return to this idea of where you come from shows where you want to go. I want to help move Ohio forward again. I remember growing up when you could get a good education, when we weren't falling from 5th to 22nd. I remember when we declared Ohio schools to be unconstitutionally funded. And we still haven't fixed it. I remember when General Motors, General Electric, and Wright-Patterson were the state's 3 leading employers, and today it's Walmart. We need to move Ohio forward, and we also need people who are in Columbus who are willing to say, I'm going to have the courage to step forward to do what I think is right. And if that means bucking my own party as I did on issue 1, then so be it. If you don't like my votes, then vote me out in 4 years. But I am going to go down and do what I believe is right for Ohioans every vote, every day. And that's why I'm running for the Ohio Senate. And if you want to learn more about me, my background, there's lots of negative attack ads out there. Some of them make me laugh. But my website's adamforohio.com, and you can learn more. And you can follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and you can even see cute pictures of my kids. So with that, I would like to thank you very much for having me.
Okay, we'll now have an opportunity for questions for the candidates. They'll both be up here. You have a microphone, James, and Tom has a microphone to pass. We're going to need, just let the candidates step in and out of the microphone up here.
So Tom, we're going to use the mics out here. And again, we ask that everyone use the mic because we are recording and they really can't hear your voice. I know you project unless you have a mic. So we've got several hands up here, so let's start.
Rightly or wrongly, the Ohio legislature, I think, has a public reputation of not caring a whole lot about, number 1, public education, and number 2, funding of local government. I'd just like to hear your opinions on both of those topics, education and local government.
Thank you for the question about education and local government. So in terms of, let me address education first. So in terms of funding for local, for education, back in 1997, the state of Ohio put a little over $5 billion into K through 12 education. Today, it is actually at an all-time high. It's about $10.6 billion. So education has been funded from the state. Now, a lot of that is going in, that's overall statewide. A lot of that now is going into the inner cities, but I will say that I've been working with Catherine Sines and Phil Herman and folks here in our community on issues like when the TPP funding was starting to hurt Hudson. So I worked with our people here as our partners in the legislature to try to keep our funding whole. So that's the education question. And your second part had to do with local governments. So, since I have served on Hudson City Council for 5 years, I was elected twice. I certainly do understand the needs for local government. I get that. I've been there. And I think there are certain things that we can and should do in the legislature to try to help that. One bill that I have introduced is House Bill 163, which would make prevailing wage permissive. So currently the state requires this mandated wage. My bill would say you can decide, you can have local control and help stretch these tax dollars further. Thank you.
With regards to education, my great-grandfather was on a school board in rural Melrose, Ohio in the 1930s. And the same funding, the basic funding mechanism that we still use is this system that we used back in the 1930s. We need to do a honest have an honest conversation about how to better fund our schools. We can't keep making every district in the state keep coming back to the taxpayers every couple years to ask for property tax increases. It's not fair to taxpayers, it's not fair to schools, and it's not fair to children, because it doesn't allow for consistency, and it doesn't allow for the kind of growth that really does keep up with inflation. And so I think we have to look at alternative ways, look at what other states are doing as to how to best fund our schools, and also how to combine services and lower the cost of education. And so, for example, healthcare is one of the biggest problems when you deal with any governmental agency. How can we use perhaps the state's budgeting and the state's purchase power to help lower the cost locally? But I think we need to start looking at innovative ways to try and fund our schools, because it's just not working. As far as local government funds, in the last couple of years we've been hearing about the $2.8 billion in the state rainy day fund. The problem is that you're looking at that money came from the local government funds, and it was essentially a robbing Peter to pay Paul. I think we need to restore our local government funds. We're almost capped out at this point. But the state, when the original plan of the sales tax was passed, the idea was that that the majority of that was supposed to be used for local governments, for police, for fire, EMS, things like that. And the problem now is if you go around a lot of these communities, they're all now having to ask for levies to support those services. Hudson's lucky, but there are a lot of communities, if you go up to Macedonia right now and you go to some of the other communities in Summit County and Wayne, where they're having to go back to the taxpayers over and over.
I would like to ask both Gina and Adam, with regard to the issue 1 and 2 that are coming up on our ballot November 6th, with regard to sentencing of misdemeanors, drug, etc. Should I vote for it?
No.
Actually, I think you'll find we're in violent agreement on this one. So issue 1, basically it would, for those watching, it would make possession of 20 grams of fentanyl a misdemeanor. Yeah, I mean, and you see the shocked faces in this room when 2 milligrams can kill a person. So, it's just, it ties the hands of judges. This thing does not belong in the Constitution, first of all. Our Constitution is our governing document for the state of Ohio. I don't think, and I believe Adam doesn't think either, that we should be putting things like marijuana and casinos and this is about issue 1 in there. So definitely I would encourage a no vote on that.
My issue, and this is 20 years in the criminal justice system, prosecution and defense, is I agree we shouldn't be putting this stuff in the Constitution. The Constitution is supposed to be, these are the people's rights, and this is how government functions. That's what the Constitution is supposed to be for. It's not supposed to be for casino gambling and marijuana and dialysis and I don't know that the golden retriever is going to be the official state dog. I'm sure that's next. My other concern with issue 1 is this, and this is based on, like I said, almost 20 years in criminal courtrooms. Judges need that ultimate hammer when it comes to dealing with substance abuse issues. I have seen numerous people of all ages, all backgrounds, and even some that live in Hudson, who you put them in rehab facility after rehab facility after rehab facility, and they can't get it or they don't want it. And at the end of the day, you need that ultimate hammer, because frankly, they don't sell a lot of fentanyl in the Ohio State prison system, and to remove them from society. And I have had clients over the years who I've gone to their funerals, who I have wished we sent to prison because maybe that would have saved them. And so that's why I'm opposed to issue 1. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's well-intentioned, though. What I actually would like to see is more of a diversionary program where you enter a plea of the felony, and when you complete probation after a confirmed time of sobriety, it gets reduced to a misdemeanor, and that's the way how you actually solve it. But that's a legislative fix, not a constitutional fix.
I'll ask you the same question that I ask candidates for the Ohio House. Lake Erie is our area's greatest natural and economic resource, and it is, frankly, in my opinion, under assault from a number of avenues that's endangering its future on both counts. What do you see as the state's role, and what would you advocate that the state do to help address that issue?
First of all, my family's farm actually is along the Rock Creek. It's one of the rivers that flows into the Maumee, which is the one that's being attributed with the majority of the waste. I don't think that the state's done enough research. I think that there's been a quick fix, which is to blame the farmers. And it's only, I think, ultimately partially their responsibility. I think the problem is we haven't put traditionally the funding into figuring out what the system is and also how to counteract it, and so I think that that's one of the issues. And I think the other issue is I think we need to look at completely what we're putting into Lake Erie. It's not just the phosphorus. And I'm a fisher. I go off the Western Basin, off Put-in Bay. I'm catching walleye and perch in non-election years. I hear they're really, really big this year, and I'm out here. And so I think we have to look at some of the innovative solutions that are being used in other states. But my other concern is if you look at, if any of you have ever studied geography, you understand that Lake Erie is the dumping ground for Lake St. Clair, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, those other Great Lakes that feed into it. And I think we need to look at where are those states feeding into the system and causing pollution that we're having to experience in Ohio. The other thing with Lake Erie is Ohio actually needs to start taking leadership and standing up when it comes to the issue of the Asian carp. Ohio's sports fishing industry is a $2.1 billion industry, and if the Asian carp end up coming into it, it's going to decimate our natural populations. And I don't think, and this is Republican and Democrat, I'm not going to blame one party for this, has not done enough to try and protect the Great Lakes from what's going to be an absolutely catastrophic attack on it.
Thank you. And again, I think on this one, this is really truly a bipartisan issue. I mean, because we all share in our environment, in our water, in our lakes, our streams, our rivers, our forests, and these do need to be protected for future generations. Over the last couple years in the State General Assembly, we have put $3 billion into protecting Lake Erie. And yeah, we have also taken some action in terms of the fertilizer that's been dumped. We've been working with the agricultural community on that. We did work with the farmers to try to figure out the times and the seasons and how to best apply their fertilizer to minimize the impact on the lake. But looking ahead, I think there's certainly more we can do and should do. Not only best practices, we can look at what are other states doing around their lakes to protect their waters and their waterways, but also communicate and talk with not just these other states, but Canada as well, because they're a neighbor to the north. I mean, they're also sharing in on Lake Erie. So, yeah, it's certainly an issue that's important. I think that's bipartisan, and we've been blessed here in the state of Ohio with some great lakes and national parks here too, right around us.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask an education question. A little bit of a follow-up on that earlier one. So, been on the school board now for about 6 years. When I was first on there, we divvy up the duties, and mine was working with the legislative. So went down to Columbus and had a chance to talk to our representatives. Plus, they had presentations from both parties talking about education, leaders of the House and Senate and so forth. And I gotta admit, when I first went down 6 years ago, it was very disappointing. At that time, I looked at what was happening with these charter schools, particularly the for-profit ones, and they looked like they were unregulated, and we were spending a lot of money on them, and wasn't sure if they were really benefiting our kids. It's a little long-winded, but we'll have a wrap-up. We spend about $1 billion a year. Please check it, because that is an absolutely correct number on charter schools. A large portion which goes to the for-profit charter schools. When I went down and asked about where this money was going and was it well spent, at the time, our representation in the Senate and the State House told me that this issue was off the table. There was no more discussion to be done on it. And the reason they were doing it was because they felt school choice was the answer to improving education. So here we are 6 years later, spent over that time about $6 billion on these charter schools. And my question to both candidates, looking back, has that theory of school choice, competition, has that worked? Has that improved the quality of education in Ohio? And if not just a little bit of regulation or a little bit of improving the rules, but a drastic change in the entire theory of the charter school system, does that need to be looked at or not?
Well, I'm going to start with the end part of the question first and work backwards. Charter schools, there are success stories when it comes to charter schools, particularly in the Cleveland area. And I haven't looked at places elsewhere, but we've also had a high number of failures. When I left the Attorney General's office, when I was there in 2008, 2009, Rich Cordray was there. We started looking at one of the charter schools in Cleveland, not one of the big ones you've heard about, but going through their books and trying to figure out where they were spending money. And the school superintendent, and I use that term very loosely, who we couldn't figure out what his educational background was, we couldn't figure out some of the teachers' backgrounds, was probably making more than Hudson's superintendent. He had a Lexus paid for by the school. And we started looking at this and realizing that the rules were too loose as to what they could spend it on and things like that, and there wasn't enough oversight. And eventually the federal government ended up taking over the role. Having been a criminal prosecutor for now, and a defense attorney, I can tell you this: if you submit a lying application or lying data to any other state agency, you go to prison. And somehow some of these charter schools have been able to fudge their numbers and things like that. Nobody's gone. This is where we need to try and remove the money from the problem. And what I'm saying about that is, and I'm not, this is not an attack on Ms. Rogner, so, and I don't think she's taking any money from ECOT, which I'm glad for. But when they are donating hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, what do you think happens? What happens to money when it goes to Congress or when it goes to Washington? We need to remove the donations, and we need to make it so that the legislature has the ability to have a clear thought process when reviewing charter schools and other major projects like that.
Okay. That's all right. So, as I mentioned earlier, I do believe that education of our Ohio's children is one of the most important things that we can do for our future, period. And I do believe that, as I mentioned earlier also, that we are blessed in Ohio, or particularly here in Hudson. We've got the Hudson Public Schools, we've got Montessori, we have Seton, we have the Western Reserve Academy, all excellent schools. And I do believe that each child is created differently, and they can learn, we need to find the environment where they fit best. Some are at Western Reserve, some are at Hudson. I have 2 daughters in the Hudson High School, love the Hudson High School. You guys are amazing. And I have one at Heritage Classical Academy. She'll be coming to Hudson next year to the middle school. So when I left Hudson and went down to the legislature, I did not know what a charter school was. I'd never heard of it. It wasn't really a topic discussed here. But when I got there and I started to study and learn, and as Adam mentioned, yeah, there are some amazing charter schools. They're doing great things, but there were also some that were not, that the kids were failing. And so, once I learned about that, I became passionate about that. That is something that I took the lead on. So I was the primary sponsor of House Bill 2 in the last General Assembly. Please look it up. It earned me the endorsement of the Akron Beacon Journal in the last race because it did put guardrails and frameworks and got rid of conflicts of interest and increased transparency on these charter schools. And because of that, a lot of these bad charter schools are closing. So it's really having an impact and definitely making a difference. I've also gone on to House Bill 87, a bipartisan bill that takes some money if there is a finding for recovery from a charter school. It takes that money then and returns it to the local school district whence it came. So that's been an issue that I've personally been really carrying the torch on down in Columbus. And yes, and thank you for mentioning that I have not taken any contributions from these charter school folks. So thank you for that. And I look forward to leading on that issue in the Senate as well.
Yeah, this is a switch a bit back, more related to the Lake Erie question, but it has to do with the future of energy policy and initiatives to provide sustainable energy systems for the state. And my question is this: what kind of policy initiatives would you support in the state legislature that would take Ohio down a path of sustainable energy? And I will be very explicit about my bias. All the good science we know says that the term clean coal is an oxymoron. So, but if you want to, if that's something you support, I'd be interested in hearing that too. Thanks.
Go ahead. Rock, paper, scissors. Well, first of all, I have the endorsement of the Ohio Sierra Club. I am very familiar with clean energy. My family in Northwest Ohio in Paulding County, if you take out US 30, we actually have windmills on some of our family farms. My dad doesn't have it on his. My great aunt has it on hers. That energy, unfortunately, goes all the way through Ohio and goes to the East Coast, where it's being purchased. I am tired of people who say you can have or. You can have jobs or you can have a clean environment. You can have jobs or you can have this. There are one of the top job creators areas is wind turbine techs and solar techs. Those wind turbines that you see out there in Northwest Ohio are generating for those farmers $15,000 a year per turbine. So my great aunt, who has 2 of them, gets $30,000 a year. She's 89, she's in a nursing home. That's not to mention the rest of the farm income. My cousin's actually the superintendent of the local school district there. They used to have to go for levies every 2 to 3 years, but because of the property tax increase, they now don't. And he's estimating at least 10 and perhaps 20 years he does not need a property tax increase. We need to get rid of some of the rules that have been thrown in that discourage wind turbine production and development in Ohio. We need to also try and re-gear our educational systems, and this goes from, I'm going to say, middle school through college, to make it so kids have the tools necessary to work those kind of jobs. I'm not a fan, clean coal we've been hearing about for years. If somebody can figure out how to make it clean, I'll listen. We just shut, we have 2 nuclear power plants in Ohio. It's clean energy, but the byproduct's dirty. But we need to start listening and have an open conversation about how can we make Ohio's energy portfolio. I would like to see Ohio be energy self-sustaining itself, where we don't have to pull in energy from other states, and then also talk about how to sell it to other states.
I get the bell every time. All right, so my background originally is mechanical engineering. I worked for Westinghouse Power Generation. I traveled from power plant to power plant across this great country, working on turbines and generators. In Columbus, I've served for, gosh, almost 8 years now on the Public Utilities Committee. So I'm definitely familiar with this issue. And what I've learned is I think what we need to do is strike a balance and look at the big picture. And what do I mean by that? In terms of striking a balance, it's energy is important that it's low cost, that it's reliable, and best we can do, protect the environment as well. I think we need to consider all those factors. When I say big picture, I say let's look at our nation as a whole. If you look at the South and the West, the sun shines there all the time. Great place for solar panels. You know, and the plains, the wind is blowing across there, and you see those wind turbines across Iowa and Nebraska. Great place for wind turbines. Ohio, we have been blessed with an abundance of natural gas. We're sitting on the Utica and Marcellus shale deposits here. So if we look at energy as a whole, I think we can make the most as a nation out of that. Now, specifically, if you want, and here's something I don't think everybody knows about, and this is kind of a public service announcement, if you will. Get on Google apples to apples and for Ohio Energy. If you get to your computer, and you can pull up electricity and natural gas, but let's talk electricity for a minute. You put in your region, and then you can say, I want 100% renewable energy, I want 25% renewable energy, and you can sort it. It'll come up with this spreadsheet, a list of providers with different terms, and you can pick yourself. You have choice. So if that's something you're very passionate about, you can do it today. You can get 100% renewable if you're passionate today. And on our farm, I have a small farm here in Hudson. We use solar power for our fences as well, but that was my choice. The government didn't make me do it. It's something I decided to do on my own. Thank you. Thank you. Great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful job to our candidates. Good luck, and we'll look forward to seeing you all out at the polls on November 6th, voting one way or the other. Couple club announcements that I wanted to wait till the end for. Coming up next week is World Polio Day for Rotary, and there's a number of opportunities that we could do projects or do a little outreach with that. Rotary International has spent a ton of money on virtual reality and actually taking you through experiences where you're going to the most remote places and even Pakistan and dropping polio virus in the mouths of children. So end World Polio Day next week on October 24th. This weekend coming up, we're going to be meeting at the storage zone for hopefully a short period of time to clean up, reduce from 2 storage units down to 1. So I appreciate if you're available, any help with that. Also on the agenda, we've got some club runner workshops coming up. Looking back through some files, I found a lot of work that Joe Avella did during his time as president with Club Runner, and really kicking it up. And I want to continue that. And there's a lot of things that we can do as a club to improve our technology and our process. So if you're a club leader or you just forgot your password and can't log in, please come join us for one of those workshops. 23rd and 30th of October at 6 p.m. at the library. Does anybody have any updates or announcements? George.
For those who may not read Crane's Cleveland Business, our member Phil Tobin was featured in a story this week on donor advice funds, quoted at length, and there was even a flattering picture of you, Phil, so I just wanted to bring that attention to the club.
Did he have a Rotary pin on?
I don't think I saw a pin.
Uh-oh.
This thing is welded.
He's got a Rotary tattoo. Don't ask him where.
Alan, you got one too. I won't tell you where.
Hey, Doug, you've got an announcement maybe, right?
Yeah, I'm giving
Perfect.
Yeah, next Tuesday, the 23rd at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Hudson Library, I'm giving a presentation on Medicare for 2019. And I'm going to be joined with by Barbara Chatelli, who's an attorney downtown. We're working on increasing awareness for senior citizens about the various levels of aid that's available, both low-income subsidy and Medicaid. If you've got friends or family that are elderly and might be running out of funds, a lot of people don't plan for that, and there needs. I know Medicaid does a 5-year look back, so there's a lot of benefits out there, and so I'm giving that presentation. It's on the Hudson Library website. The 23rd on Tuesday the 23rd at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. We thought 2 p.m. was a good time.
Gail Royster.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the service learning class for taking the time. I've passed these around to every table. Everyone's had an opportunity to read at least one of the thank you notes from them, and the effort that puts forth and the appreciation. We appreciate you also. Thank you.
Absolutely. Phil Tobin.
I recently read an article in Rotary about what Rotary has done with regard to polio. And I don't have that article, but I'd like to quote something from my memory as to what it said. There's only 3 countries in the world now that have polio. I think it's Pakistan, Afghanistan, and then a country in Africa. They're down to 14, is that right? There's like 1,400 cases of polio. I grew up in a world where polio was all over the place, and many of my friends have died from polio. But one number stuck in my mind, and that number I'd like to have validated. Maybe somebody could check this out for me, because I haven't been able to prove it. But it was in that article, it said how many children were inoculated through the international program that Rotary has supported over the years. How many children were inoculated last year? Anybody have an idea what that is, what that number is? 400 million children. I may be wrong, but that's the number that stuck in my mind. Think about what that's done, and think about what you are doing with Rotary to help that cause. I applaud everybody in this room and everybody that's involved with Rotary. What a great success story. Congratulations.
Absolutely. And if you want to make more of a contribution towards polio, one thing that's really nice, Rotary International, their foundation offers a program called Rotary Direct. I signed up for it very recently. Basically, you set it monthly or annual or however frequent you want, and it just takes it out of your credit card. So Rotary Direct is the resource. You can direct funds directly to the polio efforts. So check that out if you haven't. Other than that, it sounds like we're wrapping up here. Thank you again to our candidates for being with us this morning. Thank you to our guests as well. Pat, I'm trying to keep you guys on your toes out there, and thank you for reminding me about Road-a-Buck raffle. Because of that, can you come up here and pick the winning ticket?
Better take my ticket with me, right?
Get it.
There'd be a conflict
Get
of
it.
interest. 642.
That's wrong.
I better go look at mine.
7642. Someone's got it. Yes!
These were Catherine's tickets, by the way.
Okay, that's
so
good.
that says Catherine's money. She had to leave early.
All right, way up here. You can't look.
If you win.
He got it. He got the ball. That was not staged. That was not staged at all. All right, so, well, I think Catherine should probably want to split that with you, Pat, but payout's $12, jackpot $222. That's the excitement we needed right there, Pat. Well, hey, thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing a lot of you on Saturday for that storage cleanup. Have a great week.